guys, welcome to another monthly reading wrap up. Before I get started, I feel like I need to point out my voice. I don't know why I sound like this. It started yesterday and then it's been coming and going. Right now it's not too bad, so hopefully it doesn't get worse. I'm trying to drink a lot of water and I don't really know what to do because I'm pretty sure that I'm not sick. It just sounds like for some reason I'm losing my voice. So sorry if I sound really bad, but now that that's out of the way, let's just dive right into the 8 books that I read this month. Last month I read 9 books and this month I read 8, which is just crazy. I'm really hoping that whatever's happening, the streak keeps going because I'm usually a 5 to 6 books a month girl. And I was already very proud of that, but this is just crazy for me. Before I get into the books, let's talk about a couple statistics. I read 1 general fiction, 3 fantasies, 1 thriller, 1 manga, and 2 romances. Out of those books, 3 of them were the first book in a new series, and 3 of them were continuing a series that I'm already in the middle of. This month I did a 24-hour readathon, and I also got into a book slump, where I spent at least a week not really reading anything at all, which I feel like is the longest I've gone without reading a book in a long time. So I was really crushing it the first half of the month, and I thought that maybe I was gonna read 10, 12 books, and then the book slump hit, and I only read 1 book for the entire second half of the month. I still read more books than I normally do, but the book slump was not fun. Let's just get into the first book, which was Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the 3rd book that I've read by her, and I've absolutely loved all 3 of them. I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars because I absolutely loved it. I just never got the 5-star feelings. I feel like we all know the 5-star feelings, you just either have it or you don't, and unfortunately I never got that with this book, but I really loved every second of it and I highly recommend. This is about Carrie Soto, who is a tennis player, and in my mind she is like Serena Williams level good. During her career, she ends up winning the most titles or slams. I don't remember which one it's called, but she has the record for the most wins and she is kind of known as the world's best tennis player, and then she retires. But 6 years into her retirement, this other tennis player, Nikki, is coming for her record. And Carrie is very strong-headed, very confident, and she is like, no way am I letting somebody come and beat my title. I'm coming out of retirement to kick her butt. But she's now 37, which in the world of tennis is really old, and she's also 6 years into retirement, so she's got a lot of training to do, and you basically just follow her entire career. You get to see her at the very beginning and when she's at her greatest, and then after retirement, you get to see it all. It is very tennis heavy, obviously. That is what a lot of the book revolves around, but I'm somebody who knows nothing about tennis. I don't care about tennis, and it didn't bother me one bit. I actually learned some things, and it was just really interesting, and that's something that I've heard a bunch of people say is don't be intimidated by the fact that it's about tennis because you just don't have to love tennis to love the book. I love the relationship between Carrie and her father, who is also her coach, and there's just so many things. I feel like I could go on and on about this book. I am just so glad that I finally picked it up and that I loved it as much as I did. If you've read books by Taylor Jenkins Reid and you enjoyed them, then I highly recommend this one, and I just want to read more of her backlist. So we started off very strong. After that, I did this scavenger hunt picks my next read video, and I ended up getting The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. That entire video is just about the scavenger hunt and about me reading this, so I won't be going too much into detail because I already talked about it a lot. But long story short, this was a big fat disappointment. I was really looking forward to this. It is the start of the Remnant Chronicles, which takes place before the Dance of Thieves duology, which I feel like is way more popular and loved. I had just heard that this was really amazing and worth reading before the Dance of Thieves duology, so my hopes were really high, but I ended up giving this a 2-star. It's a fantasy romance with a love triangle, but I really just didn't like most things about this. I wasn't a fan of the love triangle. It was supposed to be enemies to lovers, where one of the guys is an assassin that's sent after her, and then the other guy is this prince who she was supposed to marry in this arranged marriage, but she ended up fleeing before her wedding. So both of them are supposed to hate her, and they both end up going after her, and they don't know about each other, but both of them just end up kind of falling in love with her as soon as they see her, so the enemies to lovers just isn't there. And for me, it honestly just felt more of a medieval book with very small hints of fantasy, and I was looking forward to much more fantasy aspects in it. I think that those were the main reasons why I really didn't like it, but if you want to see more, then you can go watch that video. I do own the 2nd and 3rd books, but I will be unhauling the whole series because I really just don't have an interest in finishing it, but I will still read the Dance of Thieves duology at some point. Then I started my 24-hour readathon where I read the next 4 books. First was Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulik. I probably said that totally wrong. This is about Mallory, who is fresh out of rehab, and she ends up getting this job babysitting a 5-year-old kid named Teddy. It's kind of a weird situation because she just got out of rehab, so the mom seems really interested in having her babysit, but the dad really isn't loving her because of her past, so things are a little bit awkward. And Teddy, the boy, really loves to draw, and his drawings are just really cute, and then all of a sudden they start to get really dark and creepy. And that's something that I really enjoyed, is that we just get pictures throughout the book, and I feel like it was really nice to break up the book and make it go a lot quicker. So Mallory is getting freaked out by all of Teddy's drawings, and she's trying to figure out what's going on and help him. It says, is Teddy troubled, or is he channeling forces he cannot possibly understand? Knowing just how crazy it all sounds, Mallory must decipher the images and save Teddy before it's too late. Based off that, I was pretty sure what direction the book was going to go into, and I've kind of always avoided that type of mystery thriller, and I will say it's definitely not my favorite, but overall it just was a really fast-paced and fun, engaging read, and I feel like it was perfect to start off the readathon with. I think that if the premise sounds interesting to you and you like this kind of thriller, then I would recommend. I think it was fun. But for me, it was a 3.5 stars because it was fun, but it was pretty unrealistic at parts, and then also just the route that it ended up taking, which I knew it was going to take, just isn't my favorite. So I wasn't expecting to get anything higher than like a 4-star out of it, but it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Then I read / listened to City of Ashes, which is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I feel like I was starting to sound bad, so hopefully I'm better now. The Mortal Instruments is part of the Shadowhunters universe, which are all young adult series that follow Shadowhunters, which are essentially demon killers. There's all sorts of demons, there's werewolves, vampires, all of that kind of stuff in these books, which kind of sounds like a lot, but it's very easily digestible. I absolutely loved and flew through the first book. It was the perfect book to get me out of a reading slump, so I was really excited to go into this one. I didn't love this one quite as much as the first book, but I still really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4 stars. I think the reason that I didn't enjoy it as much is because I listened to most of it on audiobook. I really love audiobooks, but I feel like there's only certain books that I can listen to because I usually do not get as much out of the book if I listen to it versus reading it. So I feel like books that are part of a series or fantasy books, I just think that I need to read physically from now on, because for some reason I really do feel like that is the only reason that I didn't love this as much as the first one. But I still really enjoyed it and immediately went out and bought book 3 and can't wait to read that one. Then I had kind of a little palate cleanser, which was Spy Family Volume 3. I feel like I have been talking about this series in like every other video, so I feel like it's getting really annoying and repetitive, and I don't want to get into it much. But it is the one and only manga series that I've read, and I'm really enjoying it. It is about this guy who's a spy, and he has this super important mission where he has to basically just get a fake family and enroll a child into this really prestigious school so that he can get close to this target. So he adopts this girl who is a telepath, so she can read minds, but he has no idea. And then he gets fake married to this woman who's an assassin. And he has some sort of fake reason for why he wants to get married, and then she has another fake reason, so nobody is telling the truth to each other. It sounds kind of complicated, but it's really not. It's just a silly, goofy, fun series. It's pretty dumb, but in the best way possible, and I just have the best time reading these. And so far, I've given all 3 of them 4 stars. Then I finished the 24-hour readathon with Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. She is a contemporary romance author, and this is my first book by her, and now I feel like I get why people like her. This book was just really easy to read and kind of bingeable in the best way. It was definitely a solid 4 stars. It wasn't like the best book I've ever read, but it was just really fun, and honestly, I finished the 24 hours and I had at least a third of this book left, and I thought I would be exhausted and tired of reading, but I was loving this book so much that I just wanted to continue reading. So I feel like that should tell you something. I've completely forgotten their names. It's about Alexis, who is a doctor, and she comes from a very prestigious family of surgeons and doctors, and they have very certain expectations for her and the whole family. And one day she's just driving through this small town, I don't remember why, and then she ends up meeting Daniel, who is a carpenter. He owns an inn, and he is, I think, the mayor. He kind of wears a lot of hats in this small town that he lives in. Okay, it doesn't say what the name of the small town is, but to me, it was reminding me a lot of Gilmore Girls. It's just a very cute, quiet, small town. It's very different from the big city life that Alexis is used to. Obviously, there's romance between the two of them, and she really falls in love with the town, and she's kind of stuck between the world that she lives in and the expectations that her family has for her, and I guess the life that she could have living in this small town. I liked Daniel and Alexis as people, and I kind of liked them together, but I wasn't super rooting for them as a couple. I feel like a lot of times with romance books, you are just really invested in them as a couple. You are just rooting for them. You can't wait for them to get together. And I just didn't really have that feeling for them. I liked them together and I really liked them as people, but I just didn't have the connection with them, if that makes sense. I don't really know how else to explain it, but that was kind of the missing piece for me. But it was so easy to read and it just made me happy. This is the first book in an interconnected standalone series. The second book is Yours Truly, and I've heard amazing things about that one, so I cannot wait to get to it. Then I started another series that I was highly anticipating. A lot of booktubers love this series, and one of my friends in real life has been begging me to read it, so I finally picked up Flawless by Elsie Silver. It's the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, which is a cowboy romance series. This is about Rhett and Summer, and Rhett is a professional bull rider, and he ends up getting into some PR trouble. So he's in trouble, and his agent decides to send Summer to basically babysit him and make sure that he stays out of trouble. So he is obviously very upset. He's like, I'm a grown man, I don't need a babysitter. And also, Summer is the daughter of his agent, so it just makes things a little awkward and weird. Obviously, it's a romance between the two of them, and I really enjoyed this. It was also a 4-star for me, but I do think that I enjoyed this one just a little bit more than A Part of Your World. I just thought it was funny, it made me smile and laugh, and I really enjoyed the banter between the two main characters. I really enjoyed all of the side characters, which is good because I know that the rest of the series follows Rhett's brothers, and I really enjoyed all of them, so I'm excited to continue reading and see who has the next book, because I actually don't know who it is. I believe the general consensus is that it only gets better after this first book, so I'm excited to see if I agree because I already really enjoyed this one, so if it gets better from here, then I'm excited. So all 7 of those books I read in the first half of the month, and then my book slump hit me. I don't know if it was Flawless or if it was the 24-hour readathon or what really caused the book slump, but for a week or a week and a half, I would pick up a book, maybe read like 10-15 pages, and then I just wasn't feeling it and I'd put it down. And not only was I not feeling the books, I just didn't really have the urge to read, and none of my books were sounding interesting to me. And then finally, I just decided to continue the ACOTAR series because I read the first book, I think, in December and hadn't picked up the second one yet. Probably because she is thick, so I was a little nervous to start it, but I finally picked up A Court of Mist and Fury, and I'm glad that I did. I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses, I think, a 3.5 star. I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but it definitely wasn't the best thing I've ever read. It took me a really long time to read it, and I wasn't really connecting with it very much. So I was excited to read this one, which is everybody's favorite, and see if I enjoyed it more, and I did. I didn't absolutely fall in love with the series. I'm kind of sitting between a 4 and a 4.5 for this one. I'm not sure where I land. But I did really enjoy this one, and I feel like it was perfect for getting me out of the book slump because I was already kind of into the world, and this one, thankfully, I feel like picked up a lot sooner than the first book did. So I was really happy with that. I did enjoy the romance in this book just like I thought I would. And at one point I was really excited. I was really getting the 5-star feelings one night. I thought that this was for sure going to be an absolute 5-star, like no question about it. And then I'm not really sure what happened because after that day, I never got those 5-star feelings again, which is fine, but I just was really excited. Like I thought this was gonna be my first 5-star read of the year. Even though it wasn't, I still really enjoyed this and I'm excited to continue. I can't really tell you any of the plot of this book because it would spoil what happens in book 1, but I feel like going into book 3, we're going to get a lot more of the stuff that I enjoy. While I do really enjoy the romance, I think that I prefer a plot-driven book, and I've heard that book 3 is way more about the politics and the plot, and for that reason some people don't really like book 3, but I think that the direction it's heading and just knowing that, I think I'm gonna really love book 3. At least I hope so. So yeah, I was kind of hoping that talking about it would help me figure out if I'm more at a 4 or a 4.5, but it didn't. That was everything that I read in the month of February. I feel like overall it was a really good month. Assuming that I give A Court of Mist and Fury a 4-star, my average rating was a 3.75, which I feel like is pretty good. I had a ton of 4-star reads. I am still waiting for the elusive 5-star. I don't think I've had one since maybe October or November. But hopefully March is my month and I get my first 5-star. I'd love to know how your reading month went and if you had any really great books. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.